Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Life Lessons. Kendall Lewis stepped into his classroom at the Montgomery Academy for the first time on a sweltering July day. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the combination of heat and humidity already proved stifling. Located on the third floor of the old brick building, he could almost smell the history in the place. Dust particles illuminated in the shafts of light streaming through the windows, and the room carried the weight of years. How many students and teachers have been in this room? And what books were discussed? Kendall thought back to his own high school days and the excitement he felt delving into the classics under the tutelage of instructors he, at the time, thought ancient. He chuckled. I bet some of them were younger than I am now. Oh, how perspective is everything. I like that. He went to his board and wrote those words in flowing cursive. Perspective is everything would be the theme for his year, as he guided students through the works of literary greats. For a time, he wondered if he should leave education. Society seemed to have turned against teachers and education in general. We've become the enemy in the minds of so many. Even my own family has made ugly comments about public schools. Ironically, he was convinced to remain in teaching because of this opportunity arising at a private high school. Maybe, just maybe, these parents will support learning. Kendall felt optimistic. During his interview, Headmaster Fitzsimmons assured him, We take pride in the support we receive from our parents. We demand high performance from our students. There is no room for failure in our school, but the rewards for academic success are exceptional. What happens to students who don't succeed? Fitzsimmons didn't hesitate with his answer. Those who do not meet our standards are removed and no longer attend our school. The parents accept the terms of our standards. I assume if they pay their tuition, they expect their children to make the most of their educations. Precisely. The benefits of graduating from Montgomery are lifelong. Our students are alumni of Yale, Harvard, and all of the Ivy League schools. Our graduates make up the bulk of the Fortune 500 leaders. If parents want this sort of future for their son, they will agree to our strict requirements. You said sons. Are there any girls who attend Montgomery? Fitzsimmons rapped his pen on his desk. We have a long history of being a boys-only institution. Is this a problem for you, Mr. Lewis? Absolutely not. I was simply curious. Very well. I will take you on a short tour of our grounds. We should make our hiring decision in the next week, but I am impressed with the recommendations we received from your references. Kendall wasn't confident that the job would be his, but he knew he'd find the right school for him, if teaching remained in his future. 3 days later, though, Headmaster Fitzsimmons called him with a job offer. Kendall packed his house, put most of his belongings in storage, and hired a property management company to rent out his home. Within 2 weeks, he drove a moving van to an apartment he rented a few blocks from Montgomery. Now he stood in his classroom, taking in the atmosphere of the space. Attached to the room was a book room filled with classroom sets of novels and literature books. Most were classics: Hawthorne, Hemingway, Plato, Kafka, and Dostoevsky. Varied and rich in content, Kendall liked what he had to work with. On the other side of the room was his office. I haven't had an office before. I love this leather chair and the feeling of professionalism and stature that comes with an office. Maybe I should have switched to private education long ago. The window to his office overlooked the courtyard, and its location on the third floor gave him a vantage point to view the totality of the manicured campus. Sweat dripped down the back of his shirt, and he hoped by the time the school year began that the air conditioning would reach the upper floor of the building. Kendall came to his classroom several times in the next month. He wanted to make it his room by feeling at home there before the students started the school year. He'd made a habit of doing that any time he'd switched jobs or even simply switched classrooms at the same job. If I'm going to spend most of my waking hours here for the next year, I want to feel comfortable in my surroundings. He created his lessons, mapped out the sequence for teaching them, and prepared his classroom in every way possible. An old hand at teaching, he knew it required a lot of work to make the school year appear easy for a teacher. Finally, the first day of school arrived. He taught Literature and Composition 1 and 2, and he enjoyed the challenge of teaching freshmen especially. A little nervous, but mainly excited, he greeted his students each hour as they entered his room. He made an effort to match each name and face, and by the end of the second day, he knew each student by name on sight. It's important that they know I recognize them as individuals right away. The freshmen were nervous, which he understood. They entered a new-to-them high school with no knowledge of how their year would go. Would they succeed in their classes? Would they make friends? Would they like their classes? These kids have the added pressure of knowing their parents paid a lot of money for them to be here, and the expectations placed on them are high. Headmaster Fitzsimmons reiterated the importance of a rigorous curriculum. Push these young men to their limits. Looking out at the faces of his students, Kendall saw a high level of anxiety in most of them, which surprised him. When I interviewed here, I assumed my students would feel privileged and entitled. Few of these boys exude arrogance. Why, they seem more afraid than anything else. Their parents must demand a lot from them. They are terrified to fail. Proof of their fear and anxiety happened quickly. On the fourth day of school, as they received the rough draft copies of their essays back, 3 boys asked to be excused and quickly ran from the room, covering their mouths with their hands. Was I detailed in my comments and edits? Yes, but I've never seen a student become physically ill from getting a paper back heavily marked. When the boys returned to class, Kendall addressed their fears. Class, there is no reason to be upset by the papers I handed back to you. I won't enter a grade for this essay until you submit the final draft. A few boys tried to hide the fact that they wiped tears from their eyes. This is part of the learning process. It's part of the process of becoming a better writer. I don't expect you to be experts. This is your first week of the school year. One boy in the back of the room shook his head while Kendall spoke. Renner, you don't look like you believe me. I assure you, these corrections are to help you learn, not to punish you. The boy hesitated, then responded. Sir, you said you don't expect us to be experts, but... But what? But our parents and Headmaster Fitzsimmons do expect that. Kendall looked around the room. I know you fear failure, but in this room, I want you to feel comfortable with seeing the areas you need to grow in, and then working to improve. With all due respect, sir, that's not the way the Academy expects it to be. A tall blonde boy in the third row squirmed after speaking without being called upon. Jeremy, I promise in this class you can focus on learning and not on being perfect. We are all human, and the only way we grow is by facing our shortcomings. The boys didn't look convinced, but no one else spoke. Now that we have that clarified, I want you to go through your papers and make the corrections. Pay attention to my comments and see why I made the corrections I did. If you're uncertain, ask. Once you've made the corrections, we will do a peer review session, and you will have the opportunity to create the final draft after that. The boys set immediately to work on their papers. These poor kids are so afraid of failure they can't be free thinkers. They can't be creative. The first step I have to take is to get them past their fear. From that moment on, Kendall saw himself not only as their teacher, but as their mentor, cheerleader, and safe space to express their ideas, both on paper and in class. He took each boy under his wing, and he helped them gain confidence in their other classes as well. We all fail at one time or another. The secret is to pick ourselves up afterward and improve. At first, the students hesitated, but as the classroom atmosphere developed into one of acceptance and exploration of ideas, the students let down their guard. Some students, such as Renner Williams, Kyle Berkshaw, and George Patterson, gravitated to Kendall Lewis's classroom as their safe haven. Would it be okay with you, Mr. Lewis, if we had lunch in your room so we could study? Of course. Soon a consistent group of 6 to 8 boys gathered at midday to prepare for upcoming exams. The boys became fast friends, and while Kendall never intruded in their sessions, he enjoyed knowing the boys felt comfortable in his room. While they studied, Kendall sat at his desk, eating his lunch and grading papers. During the week of midterm exams, the study group grew increasingly anxious about the chemistry test. Jeremy Chrisman tried his best to tutor the other boys. At the end of lunch 2 days before the exam, Jeremy remained in Kendall's classroom after the other boys left. Mr. Lewis, can I speak with you? Definitely. What's going on? I'm worried about Renner. He's so stressed about this test. I don't feel like anything I explain to him sticks. He's afraid he's going to fail. As I've told you boys before, we all fail. You don't understand, Mr. Lewis. We can't fail. I know achievement is important to your parents and the school, but with hard work, even if Renner fails this exam, he can bring his grade back up. Jeremy wanted to say something, but stopped. What is it? I can't say, Mr. Lewis. None of us can. Please believe me, though. This is Montgomery Academy. We can't fail. Our parents signed contracts knowing the requirements and consequences of our failure. I know the pressure on you is tremendous, but your parents and the academy only put such high expectations on you because they care and want you to have a good future. Crestfallen by his failure to impress upon the man he admired, Jeremy simply said, "Thank you for listening, sir," as he walked toward the door. Jeremy? Yes, sir? The boy stopped in the doorway and faced Kendall. You're a good friend to worry about Renner. No matter what, it will be okay. Jeremy paused a moment, then walked into the hallway without saying another word. Chemistry class took place the hour before Literature and Composition 1, and 2 days later several of the boys came to Kendall's class as emotional wrecks. Some openly cried. All cast occasional glances at Renner Williams, who sat, nearly catatonic. A harsh rapping at the door broke the silence in the room, causing the boys to jerk in their seats. Kendall Lewis walked to his classroom door and opened it. Headmaster Fitzsimmons and 2 burly campus security officers barged into the classroom. Horrified students watched as the men grabbed Renner Williams by the arms and dragged him from his desk. Finally shaken from his mental detachment, Renner came out of his trance and begged for mercy. What is this about? Kendall demanded. Please, help me, Mr. Lewis. I failed my chemistry exam. Oh, God, help me. There is no reason for you to rough up a boy over a test, Kendall said as he tried to intervene. Fitzsimmons pushed him away. You'd be served well, Mr. Lewis, to remember your place. These boys, including Mr. Williams, knew the consequences of failure. Now step aside. Please, Mr. Lewis, they're going to kill me. Calm down, Renner. This will be sorted out. Jeremy spoke up. No, Mr. Lewis, Renner is right. His parents signed the contract. The penalty for failure is death. That is not possible. Fitzsimmons sneered at him. We have a long history of excellence that must be upheld. Failure is never allowed at Montgomery Academy. The parents know the conditions when they send their sons here. We promise them great success in the world, but they cannot fail. He motioned toward the door. Officers, take him away. The terrified screams of Renner Williams echoed down the hallway and the stairs as they dragged him away to pay his price. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Into the Night Anthology podcast. Written by Caroline Giamanco, narrated by Nari. Theme music by Nico Rodriguez. All other original music, sound design, and editing by Omenhawk Studios. You can find our links in the show notes. Into the Night is on your favorite podcatcher, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help other excursionists to join us. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night. Into the Night Anthology is a Creative Typo Entertainment production.
Hey podcast lovers, are you looking for a story with drama?
Please help me.
Action.
If Skylar becomes a problem, I'll handle them.
Mystery.
Who are you?
Humor.
If you put too many eggs in a basket, one of them's gonna drop out and split right open.
Have I got a story for you? Sticks Shift Incorporated, an audio drama about life, death, and mayhem. Available wherever podcasts are found.